Alright, it's like January 4th, 2025. It's a new year. It's going to be a great day. Alright, I need to work on this truck. I worked on it a little bit last night. Got the power steering sorted. I got an adapter to go from 3/8 tube to 10mm tube. I got that figured out. The alternator now. It won't quite fit because the back of it's hitting the bump on the motor mount, so I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with that. And I've got the ITC and my coat on the floor. I've been using that to cover up the latch so I don't bruise my expansive belly. Anyway, I got an ITC high mount AC bracket kit. I need to put that on. I need to sort the radiator. I think I'm going to use the one from the Caprice because it has power steering cooler, transmission cooler, condenser, and a radiator and easy mount place for the fans. So I think that's what I'm going to do there. Anyway, there's a bunch to do and I need to get after it. I need to hear this thing run. In hindsight though, I would have not used the L77 front accessories. I would have used the truck stuff because it would have been a little bit easier. But I'm this far, I'm going to keep on with it, I guess. So here we go. Alright, so I just took the torch and beat that bump in, heated it up red hot and beat that bump in. I had to heat it a few times. Let's see if the alternator will fit now. You can still get to the top bolt. Just had to modify, you know. Oh, another thing I did was this positive post was hitting the frame part, the bracket that holds the rubber mount. So I had to take these 4 bolts out and rotate that housing so that it would be up high. This is going to be mighty close to that bracket right there. So hopefully I can get the plug in it. Alright, it fits now. It's certainly not ideal location for the wires. Because that boss you see right above that plug is one that holds the power steering bracket. One of 3. Which could be eliminated, I suppose, but it's not good for... And by the way, this deal is eliminating that bracket. But it's got 3 bolts. I think it'll be okay. In my limited engineering experience or education. Alright, sticking with my reputation, I'm hacking that part of the bracket off. My logic is it only has 2 bolts that hold the pump to the bracket. It's kind of smallish bolts. And it still has 2 quite large bolts that will hold it securely to the head, and it has a lot of surface area matching it there. I'm calling this a necessary evil, or weight reduction. You know, all 1 ounce of it. By the way, at work we bought a new Chevy truck, and the salesman gave me this set, which I'd never heard of before, but it's a pretty nice set. I might have caught it on fire a little bit right there when I had that Mustang. I like this set, but I don't like this. It's in such a position that when you're ratcheting, you'll bump it and switch which way it's turning or make it skip. It's kind of annoying. I have a snap-on ratchet that way too, 1/4 inch drive. But I'm not going to cry too loud. It was free. And if it's free, it's for me. Who's this?
Oh, don't film me. I'm in my jammies.
It's okay. You're fully covered. Alright, this stuff takes forever. I got the reservoir on. Now I've got to hook up. I told you a lie. I said it had a power steering cooler. It does not. That's okay. Don't need one. I need to cut this line off for here or so. Bend a 90-ish on it. So I can use that hole in the frame to clamp that there. And then I'll have to sort out the rest of this here to get it to that return line. So I better shut up and get after it, huh? Also, dear radio station managers, we don't want to hear the same song 8 times every 3 hours. We'd like to hear a selection. There's lots of songs out there. Lots. And country music stations play some of the old stuff. You know, a man can only hear Taylor Swift so many times. Or that jelly donut guy. The unfortunate thing is they're forcing us to listen to the Spotify and all that. Trouble is, my little ding-dinger there quit working. And by ding-dinger, I mean Bluetooth. Whatever you call it. Well, I did a really bad thing. Sure did. I got my line wrench on there. My crow's foot line wrench. I had to put some muscle into it to get it loose, and I didn't notice until it was too late. The nut did not spin on the tube and twisted it. And of course it's got that crazy metric O-ring fitting, which didn't have an O-ring in it, which is why it was so tight, I imagine. So I gotta figure out what am I gonna do now. I ain't got no way to make that flare, I don't think. Alright, very luckily I had another one down on a C20 front end I keep down in the woods. Someday I'm gonna put it under that van, but anyway, I robbed this for now, and that will become a future Mr. Heavy Chevy problem. Actually, it already has. You know, some of you older guys probably can recall a time when you saw your dad do something and you thought, ooh, age is setting in. He just messed that up. He would have never done that in his younger days. Well, I think that might have just happened to me, except nobody was watching. But I'm going to tell you anyway. I put that hose clamp on there so that once I slid it on my new line, I could tighten the hose clamp. Slide it back and tighten the hose clamp. But I didn't slide the hose clamp. I just tightened it where there was no line. What the heck, man? I'm losing it. Anyway, we got a nice P clamp there. Everything looks pretty neat. So that's a 10mm tube. I tried to flare it a little bit, which I accomplished, but why they gotta change tube size to millimeters? Now you gotta buy more tools. Anyway, I'm gonna quit griping. I sound like an old man. Alright, there's the fancy new ICT bracket for the high mount AC compressor. I hope it tells me what size belt to use. Anyway, let's see if we can figure that out, since I got everything else figured out up here. I hope. Well, I can see one minor thing already. This harness is supposed to tuck in there like so, but we've got to utilize that bolt hole right there. So we've got to pull this up, which I don't think is a deal breaker, because We don't need those wires anymore. I think those all go to the old AC compressor, which was down low, which we're going to have it up high, and we're going to use the truck controls for that anyways. So hopefully this ground wire will still ground. Anyway, let's see what we got. The unfortunate thing is I got to remove the water pump again to get that bolt in. Alright, there it is. Not a big fan of it being up there. It's kind of ugly, but I guess it'll be okay. Only 2 of those wires went to the old AC compressor. I ain't sure what that one's for. Bet you that went into an AC line. I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure that out. I'd advise you to not put the water pump on till last, since I've taken it on and off a couple times. You know, Mr. DD Speed Shop, he's posted videos of him driving his old cars in the snow, and one year he put a snow plow on a 57. I'm gonna prove all that stuff too. You know, as soon as I get some snow. Here's what I came up with to come up with the belt size. I didn't have one long enough, so I cut one and screwed it together. And it's a 5-rib belt and then a 4-rib belt, but that should get me pretty close. It's probably the Amazon man.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to the parts store and see if I can come up with one. Look at what the Amazon man brought me. Nice book so I know how to wire good. Anyway, that's not the reason I turned the camera on. Went down and bought 2 belts. Serpentine belts. The shorter belt is $71.99. The longer one is $58.99. How do they come up with this? I thought that's got to be wrong. These guys are taking me to the cleaners. So I called another parts store in another town. A different parts store, same price. Anyway, luckily it's the longer belt, so that's what I'm going to go with. Alright, that took an inordinate amount of time, but I got all the front stuff done. I guess now it's time to tackle the radiator and the condenser. So, I just got this sitting in here. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to remove the factory condenser and go from there. What are you eating? You want me to come back in a minute? Mm-hmm. Alright, I'm making mounts for the radiator. In the Caprice, there's a couple holes in the frame where these little donuts fit, and then they just... Oh, I'm leaking oil on the floor. That's okay. And then you just set the radiator in there and there's some clamps on top. So the radiator needs to come up, sit in there anyway. So my idea is take this piece of scrap metal, cut it half in 2, take a hole saw, put a hole in it, stick the biscuit in it, then locate the radiator, and it'll be similar to the factory mount. What are you eating?
I was eating some Cool Ranch Doritos.
I see. You got one on your tooth right there. Alright, that worked out pretty good. I used that little bit of scrap metal there. Used a hole saw, cut the holes, stuck the little rubber biscuits in, mounted it to the bottom of the radiator support, and then I used the factory Caprice brackets right there, and a 1/2-inch 3/8 drive Craftsman socket times 2 for a spacer. And I left it so you could read the brand. That's a little nod to George, the Shade Tree Fix-It Man. Alright, the radiator's mounted solidly.
Today's his birthday.
It is? Happy birthday, George, the Shade Tree Fix-It Man. Now I can... What can I do? Hook up the lower radiator hose, I suppose I oughta. And I can put the fans in, see how that looks. Now, young fellers, when you start getting old, you got to start thinking about don't be leaving the creeper where you plan on walking.
And don't be running over your wife's toes with it.
They shouldn't be in the way. Alright, I'm going to put the fan in now, and the fan should slip right in with no modifications, because it's got these little tabs, and they're already on the bottom of the radiator, and then they'll bolt in right there. Alright, let's see if that holds true. Well, I just figured out I didn't have it figured out, what I thought I had figured out, but I really did have it figured out. I don't know, now I've confused myself again. Anyway, it does have a power steering cooler. There's one end of it right there. And right there's the other end of it. But now that I've struggled with everything, I don't think it's going to have a power steering cooler. Which should be fine. The old square body's never had one. So, this ain't going to have one. Right, babe?
Right.
Look at there. It even handily snaps in place right there. So you can go find your bolts. Alright, the upper hose from the 2012 Caprice had this little dual alley on it to go to the oil cooler. We're not running an oil cooler. So I took it apart there and it's too shorty anyway. So I was digging around out in the pile and I found this door brace out of a Ford F-250, which might work. But then I found this piece of copper, which is kind of the same thing, only different than that. That piece of pipe's about the right size and I think it's long enough. So I'm going to cut that off is what I'm going to do. Or maybe I'll try to melt the solder and pull it out and make sure it's long enough. Maybe I'll do that. Might be fun anyways. Hey! Why did you do that? Sometimes it does that when the torch ain't hot enough. It's set high enough for the orifice. That time I let it touch. There it is! Wasn't that sweet? What'd you say?
I'm gonna go take care of the ducks.
But what'd you say before that?
It's cold.
Yeah. Make a poor pioneer woman.
It's cold.
Got anything to say? I do. Look at that. Got the copper. Copper's proper, they say. Alright, the radiator and the coolant hoses are a done deal. Now I got to hook up the transmission cooler. And go on. There's a song on the radio right now, or just a minute ago, that said, I am so freaking bored. Guess I'll go home and medicate and sit and medicate or something like that. Anyway, here's my point. Or my observation, at least. I ain't been bored in years unless it was in a meeting or some kind of place I had to sit I didn't want to be at. Get yourself something to do, and then you won't have to medicate. That's what I say. I've often said if I could put a phone surgically attached to my forehead or something like that, she'd pay more attention to me. All right.
I was looking at old photos of you.
Oh. And I'm standing right here.
Well, they're funny. You could.
I'm funny standing here. I'm funny all the time.
No, you're not. You think you're funny.
All right. Mrs. Heavy Chevy said she didn't think the hood would shut with that radiator cap, but there's only one way to find out.
I didn't say I didn't think it would. I said, will it? Before you went to building it up and didn't think about it. I was just trying to help you out.
You were expressing doubt. So there, the hood shuts.
Great.
All right. The parts in the back of the truck are getting smaller. Parts pile, I should say. The oil I'm spilling is getting bigger. The boxes are stacked up. Parts are there. I can't find the piece to my tripod. Oh, and Mrs. Heavy Chevy had Mrs. Heavy Chevy standing there to ring the bell. Go ahead. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it, y'all. Look at her. She's losing a little weight.
Stop.
She is. Not that she was ever portly like myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...